Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. We're here today and I hope you're doing good. I'm doing good. We have another special guest. We're starting a new show, a new format called Why I Love. And we're looking at the Barenaked Ladies today. And when I think of Barenaked Ladies, I think of the JMB Cafe. So I'm going to pass it over to our special guest, introduce himself, and talk about the band a little bit.
Hi, yeah, I'm JMBCafe, Twitch streamer, but more importantly, my name is John Michael, and I'm probably one of the biggest Barenaked Ladies fans in the world. They've been my favorite band. I mean, like I heard them as a kid and stuff, but about the age of like 13 is when I really got into them. You know, you listen to albums from start to finish, that sort of thing. I'm 33 now. What is my expertise in being a big fan of them? Knowing way too much about them, their history, listening to their music. Recently for the Spotify Wrapped, I can't remember how many zeros it was, but it was like 0.00 whatever percentage, and I went and looked at how many listeners they had, and I determined for the last year that I'm in the top 130 listeners of Bare Naked Ladies on Spotify. But what just makes me a big fan is every time I put them on, they bring me to a comforting place. Or if I really want to tune into the lyrics, they bring me into a very introspective place and questioning the world. Even at the age of 13, listening to them, it made me go, hey, wait a second. You know, these are silly lyrics on top. But then when you listen to it a little deeper, holy heck, there's some life exploring to do.
Awesome. And do you remember either the first song you heard from them or like when they went from a band that you're like, oh, I like this song too, this is a band that really speaks to me?
Yeah, so um being born in 1990, I heard obviously if I had $1 million as a Canadian all the time. But I didn't know it was one of theirs. It almost seems like one of those, especially if you're born and that song existed, like some sort of nursery rhyme that's always existed. So they had kind of did that, and then I saw the Digimon movie and that was in it. But I remember I was probably 11, and I heard Falling for the first time on the radio, and I was like, huh, I really like this. I like the playing of the opposites, I'm so cool, too bad I'm a loser, that kind of thing. And even at 11, I'm just like, oftentimes I could feel confident and not confident and that kind of thing. And I was like, wow, I really connect with this. And then when I finally got a hold of actually getting, the CDs, having the vinyls all the way through or not the vinyls, sorry, the CDs. I have vinyls now because I'm 33 and I have a beard. But yeah, when I 13, when I got a hold of them, and I was like, wow, everything here is a banger.
Yeah, I think same as you. So I was born in 88, same year as the band formed from Scarborough, Ontario, I believe. There you go. And I remember, yeah, if you grow up in Canada, if I had $1 million. I think you know a lot of other songs, but that one certainly, I know my dad had a Hold This Up. This is not the version we had, but this is Gordon. This is their debut album. So we'd listen to this all the time. So you got tracks like Hello City, that's a good one, Grade 9, Brian Wilson, Be My Yoko Ono. And to be even more Canada, we had Much Music, which is like MTV, but it had a lot more kind of live stuff, live discussion. They had this thing called Speaker's Corner where you could go, put $1 or a quarter into the box, and you could record whatever you want. Usually, people would, in a lot less of a toxic way. It's kind of like rants and raves on Craigslist, but funny, and it doesn't make you upset about the state of the world.
Right.
And there's that famous video of the five of them just like crammed into the box doing an acoustic version of Yoko Ono. And just seeing it at that time, being like, that's really cool. Like, what other bands are doing that? Why aren't more bands doing that?
Right.
And then like you, I think they were on compilations, the Digimon movie soundtrack, which actually has a lot of great tracks on that. If I can find a copy.
I think it's the best movie soundtrack in history.
Yeah, I mean Space Jam's up there, but
Fair point. Fair
yeah.
point.
And then Barenaked Ladies, I think whenever you talk about them, whenever I mentioned, so a few years ago, I listened to their entire discography. I'd like to do that once a summer. Pick a band. I like, but might not know a lot about, go through everything. And I mentioned that they're like, oh, how many albums do they either don't know the Barenaked Ladies, or they're like, oh yeah, the band that did 1 week or if I had $1 million, or they're like, oh, neat. Um, and then I felt like a maniac. I was like, no, they're so good. They have so many great tracks. Like, do you know this album?
Absolutely.
Yeah. So I don't know about you. Like, what's it like being the world's biggest Barenaked Ladies fan?
Yeah, no, it's there's some people, every time you'll say it to them, they're like, "Oh yeah, I love if I had $1 million." Or they'll again, it's all been done 1 week, that sort of thing. And by the way, those songs are absolute bangers. So it's not even like I'm resentful for that. It's like, yeah. Or of course they'll be like, they're the ones with the chimpanzee song, and I'm like, they don't even like to talk about that one. The Bare Naked Ladies themselves. But I do try to convince people. I'm like, no, there's this beautiful, way that they have with words, and if you listen to them, you can really kind of find yourself being quite introspective. And when I try to recommend some more introspective tracks, I try to think of stuff that still kind of has that pop kind of sound to it. But that, what have you. And one song that I like to bring up, and I didn't just bring up in this list, is Pinch Me. And the reason I like to bring up Pinch Me is that it really has this lens on this suburban life that seems like it should be perfect, but still feeling very kind of out of place and unsure in the world. And that one was a hit for them. But a lot of all their other songs still touch on points like that. I like the uh I'm trying to think now, I'm blanking. Other songs that I try to recommend. Yes, yes, yes. A B-side from Everything to Everyone. They later released it on a rarities album. That song has that kind of pop feeling, very fast. In fact, it might be some of the fastest vocals that Stephen Page does, because usually Ed Robertson's the one who does the fast vocals. And that song is kind of really about, living in a world of kind of propaganda and being afraid to question things. It was written, of course, during the Iraq War, George W. Bush, that sort of stuff, but it still kind of really has a message. The line's repetition of suspicion takes a lie and makes it true. Or there's other lines in the song where it tries to convince you that that might is all important. Second Best, another pop sounding song, Everything to Everyone. And that song is about looking at the state of the United States and saying, maybe it's okay that we're second best. Maybe, looking over at you and what's going on there. Oh goodness, what's going on over there?
Yeah, totally. I think I think you kind of touched on that, is maybe because of their first singles, so they're seen as like a almost like a novelty folk comedy act, right? If I had $1 million, it's cutesy, but it's not that deep. Be My
Right.
Yoko Ono, it's cutesy, not that deep. But even on their debut, they've got some more introspection. They have obviously on their follow-ups Brian Wilson and Jane and Old Apartment, like very touching songs. And then we
Absolutely.
get to maybe their commercial period. They get a little more poppy, a little more rocky. So you have the albums Maroon. There's a copy of it there. So you got like Too Little Too Late and Pinch Me, the one you talked about. But then you got stuff like The Night I Fell Asleep at the Wheel, right?
Beautiful.
And then you get, oh, stack almost fell over. Then you get the album here, Stunt. So same thing, 1 week. That's the big hit.
Right.
But then like Light Up My Room, for instance, that's a really great song. I like
It's
that
a
a lot.
beautiful song.
Yeah. And like I'll Be That Girl and Alcohol. They're still, doing the kind of funny irreverent stuff.
Very. Yes.
Yeah. And it's just they cover so many styles even on one album, which I think is really cool.
Yes. Well, Stunt, I mean, you go all the way through and you have, that zany 1 week, that I'll Be That Girl, which might be about autoerotic asphyxiation. Alcohol, and that, fine line between, as the line says, self-control and self-abuse, and all the way to the final track, When You Dream, which was about, Paige had just had his first kid, and thinking about, what a kid is thinking about, just a place in the world. Are they thinking about quantum mechanics? What are they thinking about? So yeah, it's exactly what you said. They're not a one just type of topic band. They're hitting all of them.
I think as well, so kind of notoriously in the band. Maybe I'll mention this album before we get to that chronologically, but Barenaked Ladies Are Me. I like this one a lot. Bank Job, I really like that track. Again, one of those like
Yes.
it's silly, but it's kind of heartfelt as well. Like it's about a bank robbery, but it's very emotional in that
It
way. Yeah.
is very, I recently heard on Spotify this almost like metal-esque cover of it.
Hmm.
And I was like, yeah, that's exactly the song to do it to, because it's exactly what you said. It's it's a robbery, and then, one of the lines is, well, how do you plan for a bank full of nuns?
Yeah.
You know? And so
Exactly.
they panic.
Yeah. Yeah, I really like that track. And then, as a band, they split apart. Um, and the interesting thing is when you think of their vocals, Stephen and Ed go so well together, right? You have the more operatic sing song, and then you have sort of the more folky homespun vocals.
Yeah.
And they've kind of like I've seen Barenaked Ladies, but not with Stephen, and I've seen Stephen solo. Both were fantastic, and they do songs where the others would have been singing. Um, but I think unfortunately some people they kind of left the Barenaked Ladies or haven't listened to a lot of the follow-ups. When even their first album, um, Post Steven was really, really great. And
All
I
in
think
good time.
All in Good Time, I really like that album. And even Fake Nudes and Detour de Force, two of their more recent albums, those are really, in fact, Fake Nudes, I think, is maybe my favorite, or at least like top three Barenaked Ladies albums. It's really, really
Right.
good. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I try to tell people the exact same. So first of all, they go, well, I don't want to listen to them. Steven's not in the band anymore. And first thing I say is go listen to Steven then. I want to see his stats go up on Spotify and YouTube. Go listen to him. He's still dropping music. They're still beautiful. Last year he released Excelsior, and it might be his best solo work. It's incredible. But Barenaked Ladies, of course, the four other members of the band have all been almost there since the inception of the band, of course, since the inception, and they are still kind of doing their magic. They're still having a lot of fun. You mentioned Fake Nudes 2017, Detour de Force 2021. And you're right. Both of them, I would say, are actually the top two post-Page BNL records. My wife and I were actually having an argument. It's funny you should say it, Fake Nudes. She said Fake Nudes is also her favorite. I said mine's Detour de Force. But between both of them, again, they're still covering a variety of topics. Let's go with the tour just because I just happened to mention that one. You have, your basic, very happy poppy sound in Good Life, which is a little bit about looking in the past about Barenaked Ladies, but also just saying, let's look at the good life. But then you also have a song, I believe it's called Live Well, which is about Ed, and grappling with having had an alcoholic father. And that's another kind of deeper topic. Even New Disaster, one of their singles from that album, kind of grappled with, a problem that we've had since the advent of the 24-hour news channel in the 80s, this constant deluge of nonstop negative media. And it's not, of course, that these things start happening, but it's, that draw of like, please look here, and, describing that as, well, kind of a disaster in a way.
I think as well on Fake Nudes, to kind of sum up the Barenaked Ladies, they're a very Canadian band. They're very, very polite, right? Because you think of the song Canada Dry,
Yeah,
which is just all these references to culture and Canadian
it is.
geography and other artists. Um, Canada Dry tried to use it in their advertising, and I was like, yeah, they say Canada Dry,
They
but
do.
it's a
Yeah,
weird song to pick because like it's
it
a
is.
sad, not sad, but it's kind of a melancholic song.
Well, I mean, the line was listening to Gord is making me cry, referring to
Yeah,
Tragically Hip Gord Downey. Like,
yeah,
yeah, exactly.
yeah,
It is kind of melancholy, but again, it's the representative of their Canadian roots. Even going back to so Fake News is 2017, but just because you brought up that Canadian thing, let's go back to 1994. Maybe You Should Drive. The song I believe it's I'll Be Waiting
yep,
is the song, and that is about you know, the Quebec separatism issue. And it analyzes it from, you know, a couple points of view, and of course how the rest of Canada might seem arrogant and not understanding of the differing culture in Quebec. And again, that's, you know, Barenaked Ladies. This people think this joke band, and here's this song, which is you know, hopefully as a country, that unifying thing. I'll be waiting there for you. Um, Aggressively Canadian. Good way
yeah,
to put it.
yeah. They're it's Canada. There's a couple artists like that, you know, Tragically Hip, I'd say, are certainly one of them as well. But Bare Naked Ladies, if you're like, how do you put Canada into music? I think they're
Yeah,
one of those examples.
absolutely.
And why, you know, we'll title this video something like "Why I Love." So, like, why do you love the Bare Naked Ladies?
I love the Barenaked Ladies because they bring me comfort. Their music is just something that I put these headphones on or whatever, and I can get lost in. I can hear a song 1,000 times, and sometimes in one way it's a sense of comfort, and another times I'm picking up on a nuance I never noticed before, a reference I never noticed before. Their lyrics are filled with that, whether it's one of those songs that is a little more like silly and zany, or whether it's one that's actually like, whoa, no, this one had another deeper meaning. um you know, that's kind of cool to see. Here's a one. I'm trying to remember if I'm remembering this song right, and if I remembered it wrong, please delete this. But I believe it's
So
their
much
new album.
work.
And what too much? All right,
So
fine,
much
John will be
work.
wrong.
Yeah.
I it's one of Kevin's songs on In Flight, just came out. I think it's See the Tower, and it's
Yeah.
full of just Canadian references. The entire thing is full of
Yeah.
Canadian references. And at one point it talks about a mayor doing drugs, and if you just listen to the song, you're like, oh yeah, corrupt politicians. But no, that's
Yeah.
the actual Toronto mayor reference. And then they go, or you're a mayor uh banning bands. And again, you could kind of just let that one slide by. But if you go back to the 90s, Barenaked Ladies themselves were banned by a Toronto mayor from playing a certain show or what have you. It was later blamed on a bureaucratic oversight. That's whether or not you choose to believe that or not. And of course, it was referenced in the 2000s when they were given the key to the city and, you know, what have you. But yeah, they were banned because of their band name. So again, referencing Canada, and it's weird to be self-referential, but these silly things that Toronto mayors have done just happen to involve them at one point.
Exactly. It's great. So if people want to check out Bare Naked Ladies, what's maybe a couple tracks or a couple albums you think they should go to first if they're not too familiar with them?
Yeah, that's a good question. So, I guess my starting point is always, you know, if you know Bare Naked Ladies so far, or even just some of their hits, like what ones do you like more? If you hear something like, you know, If I Had $1 Million and Enid, you know, you want to go, and if you've never listened to Gordon all the way through, you know, 1992, their official first debut album, and I say that because they had like 3, 4 demo tapes before that, but you know, you go listen to Gordon 100%. But if you know you are a little bit more of a modern fan, and you're like, oh no, I really liked It's All Been Done. I really liked you know, 1 week. You know, you hit up Stunt. You hit up Everything to Everyone. You hit up Maroon. Those three were very much, I think earlier you kind of described it as they entered that pop era after the first three albums, and all three of them, they play together quite seamlessly. If you're not even a fan of them, you know, if you threw those three albums into it, you might not notice, like not notice that you've jumped between albums and the songs, and that's because they're all great. If you're looking for something newer, you're like, oh man, I actually heard a few years ago, odds are, I didn't even know they were still releasing music. You want to hit up this odds are isn't on this album, but Fake Nudes to Tour de Force, or the one that odds are is from Grinning Streak. But yeah, if I was to recommend like a top three, I guess it'd probably be Everything to Everyone. That's 2003. Gordon, 1992. Stunt, 1998.
Awesome. Thank you so much. So I think we're wrapping it up. We all love the Barenaked Ladies now.
We're gonna make them.
We're gonna make them. We're gonna make them.
Right.
So,
Yeah.
so what do you do? Where can people watch you more?
Oh yeah. So my work elsewhere is not Bare Naked Ladies enthusiast. I am a Twitch streamer. I play Nintendo variety games and I chat with my chat like most people do on Twitch. So twitch.tv/JMBCafe. But we talk about a variety of topics. And of course, how Darcy has learned that I'm a super fan is that I'm such a super fan of Bare Naked Ladies. I'm going to mention them any opportunity that I can. People can say one, two words, and I have to just start rhyming off a line. You say it's been, and I automatically got to go 1 week since you looked at me. So maybe it's been 1 week since you looked at me. Tune in, JMB Cafe,
Awesome.
twitch.tv.
I'll say I'm a subscriber. I'm not getting paid to say this, but I'm a subscriber, and I really
All
like
right, I can
all
lay
your
down the gun now. Okay.
exactly. The knife, right?
The knife, right.
The knife. I think if you are a fan of like, Let's Players, like Twitch gamers, you're a great channel, but also just to chat about funny stuff and serious stuff, you can do all of that on your channel. So I think that's pretty cool because not everyone has that capacity, I think.
It's fun to do, and maybe again I kind of learned from Bare Naked Ladies. We were just talking about it. They touch the serious, they touch the funny, and I think that's what life's made of, is all of those things. So yeah, on my Twitch channel, someone's might come in and have a hard day, and if they want to talk about it, cool. If they just want to lurk, that's cool too. And someone wants to come in and say this funny thing that just happened to them today, and then we'll and it's just a place to where I hope people can hang out, just like a bar or cafe after work. JMB
Awesome.
Cafe.
Sounds good. Well, I'll certainly head there. And thank you so much for joining me today. And until next time, I'll see you online.
Thank you so much for having me.